What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Raw Stocks. This is Rustic. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tesla's chart. We're going to look at where price came from, where price ended today and last week, and where price is likely to head tomorrow and into the rest of the week. Got some big data coming out over the next 2 days. Definitely going to see the market move based on that data. And you can see the market really was pretty stagnant today as we'll dig into the chart. But before we get started, don't forget to check out the links in the description below. We got a free month of premium, so you can try this out on the Discord. Code is in the link in the descriptions below. Code TRIALCODE for 100% off 1 month, plus there's an additional 7 days free trial attached to that. So basically 37 days you guys could try out Raw Stocks Premium, get the best in options callouts for Tesla, QQQ, Nvidia. Definitely made some money today. Traders that followed the trades did pretty well. So let's go ahead and jump into the chart here. We got the weekly chart pulled up today. We don't always look at the weekly chart, but today I decided let's take a look at the weekly chart and see what it's telling us. See if we can get some clues on where price maybe is heading over a little bit higher time frame, a little bit longer term when we're looking at Tesla. So a couple things we want to note here is on the weekly, we got this fair value gap that's been kind of lurking around. We've come back down previously all the way back in April 2023. And this is going to be a bullish fair value gap, so we'll change that to green if you're going to chart with me. But you can see we dropped back down into it. We popped down. We dropped into it way back in 2023. Now we're popping back down into it again a couple weeks ago, end of April 22nd, week of. We pulled down into that for 2 weeks, and then we found a bounce out of that fair value gap. Now, that doesn't mean we don't come back down and close it, but what that tells me is that fair value gap still is acting as an area of importance, right? Because we pulled down to it and we propelled out of it very quickly, and then we had another move up, and we haven't come back down and tested the low. So where does that leave us on the weekly chart? Okay, where it leaves us is that we popped up to test this 20 period moving average, right? It's a simple moving average out of that fair value gap. We found support in there. We popped back up to test the 20 period. Well, last week we ran a test of the 20 period again and we traded down. We've closed that weekly gap and here we are in a new week, right? What we're looking for is, if you're looking for the bull case scenario, and I will draw this out for you guys, is we want to pop above that 20 period, right? We want to clear that previous week high around that 200 level, right? And maybe we see another week pop down, and then we want to run a test of this 50 period, right? And that's going to be up around the 220s. You can see that 50 period is pretty flat, and we've seen some times where we popped over, we ran a test and found support. Now we've dropped under, and we haven't come back to test that weekly, right? And we are going to come back and test it at some point in time, and I think that we're coming up on that before we see a drop even lower. I do think we're going to push back up. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't, again, come back down here into the 150s, run a test of that weekly breakout candle. But what I do think is we're going to run, and as soon as we pop over that 20 period on the next push, if we can clear that, that's going to be around 185. If we can clear that, I definitely think we're going to run at that 199 level, or that previous week high, 198.87. Officially on the weekly chart. Once we clear that 20 period and pop above there, we are going to make a run at that 50 period, right? And that's going to take out some of this liquidity. And around that 50 period, we do have a bearish fair value gap that could draw price into it. We'll go ahead and put that on our chart here, and this is on a weekly chart. So we got our bearish fair value gap, and that's going to be around the 224 all the way up to 235 level. And that's where we're going to push up. We're probably going to find rejection there, just because there's also a 50 period moving average right around that, or a 50 week moving average right around that. We'll probably find rejection. We might cycle back down and push up through it, totally likely. But once we get up to that moving average and that fair value gap, we're probably going to find rejection. Now we'll see how long it takes us to get there. On the Discord, we have entered some longer term swing trades for June and July, and those are calls. So definitely looking for that push back up to test. But also, we haven't seen this 20 period curl up at all, right? We've rejected it for 2 weeks in a row. We need to get above it. But once we get above it, just like I had just drawn out for you guys, right? We get above it, we might come back and test it before we make a run at it. So this could take, this could take us into June or July before we potentially see this completely unfold, right? I mean, it could happen faster than that. You never know. If we look at the weekly RSI, right, we're above the control line, the 14 period moving average on the weekly, right? We're above it. We're in a position where we can make a run. And like I said, that'd be up to the 220 minimum or into this fair value gap, right? And we might overshoot it a little bit into that fair value gap, then drop down from there and see where price wants to recycle back down to. But at that point in time, we'd be back above the 20 period on the weekly, right? And that could drive us even higher. So definitely some things to be watching out for. But we need to clear that 185 level. And I know looking at gamma levels, it's going to be sticky to push back up to that. I know we have some positive gamma that's been building for that 175, 180, 185 level. So I don't think it's going to be super easy to push through that. But once we do, like I said, we might pop back down to that, once we get above 185, maybe up all the way to 200, we'll probably pop back down to 185, maybe 175, somewhere in there, test that level again, see if it wants to hold, right? We kind of have this consolidation building up here, and we might see the same thing right here where we're currently at. And then again, see us push up and run a test of that 50 period weekly moving average. Now let's jump over to the daily chart. Daily chart, we did have a green day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a green week. Things that I want to notice on the daily, we're above the 20 period. We were running a test. We were stuck in between the 50 and the 20 period, right? Here's that weekly fair value gap. We closed this gap last week. We have this gap lurking down here. I don't think it's going to close right now. I think we are going to see the 20 period here start to push us up. We have a small gap, right? We've seen a retracement. Let's take a look from low to high where that retracement took us. You can see it took us right down to equilibrium or that 50% level. Now we could cycle back up a little bit, right? Run a test again on that weekly 20 period moving average, and then pop back down a little bit more down into this, golden pocket, which could take us as low as 156, 157, right? That would partially fill the gap if we got down there. But I just don't see it. If it happens, it's because this 50 period is going to reject us. We'll see the 20 roll over. We'll come back down here, run a test on that breakout area where we saw the gap into the golden pocket, right? Back into the weekly fair value gap to draw some more liquidity. I think we're done. I think the low of 138.87 is going to hold, at least for a little while as we, start to make moves up. But tomorrow, if we clearly clear this 50 period on the daily tomorrow, and we take that 175 level and push up, into this fair value gap right here on the daily chart, right? We could definitely see that 20 period start to run us back up to do another test on 200. So we'll be watching that closely. This is where we're going to start putting some levels at. We're going to put a level at 187.58, which is the liquidity, the buy side liquidity from the small move up, right? And then on the daily chart, we could certainly throw out some a fair value gap. Okay, so we'll mark that off on our chart with some lines. We got a fair value gap right there, and we'll mark it in red so we know it's a bearish fair value gap. So if we push back up into that and we find rejection inside that fair value gap, we certainly could say that we're going to push back down to this optimal trade entry level. So right now I'm playing calls, but I'm being cautious. They're longer dated calls. We'll play intraday as we see moves happen. But right now, again, cautiously aware that there's a fair value gap right here as high as 182.06. Now, if we clear that with daily candles and we close above, we're looking for that 187. We got gamma levels at 185. Then we're looking for that push up to 199 and potentially higher. We have the potential, and the setup is starting to look like that could happen. But again, daily chart need to get above the 50 period. Today we closed right around it. If we drop down to the 4-hour chart, we see that we had an inverted fair value gap here on the 4-hour chart. So I'm going to draw it out here, but I'm not going to leave it on my chart. What I want to notice is that we had a fair value gap here. It has inverted. Inverted also can be called a balanced price range, where we had a small fair value gap. So this is the inverted fair value gap. And then inside of that is the balanced price range right here. And that's where there's two fair value gaps inside the same fair value gap, right? So we had a negative bearish fair value gap, then we had a bullish fair value gap form right here on the 4-hour chart. This is called a balanced price range. Okay, so I'm going to put 4-hour balanced price range in there just so I know it's there, right? We also have here the 4-hour inverted fair value gap. Both of those are good signs, right? Both of those are great signs. Now we do have on the 4-hour the 20 period curling down, but we still have the 50 period moving up. So we could pop back above that and get the 20 period to curl back up and start to give us momentum back to the upside on the 4-hour chart, right? But we also could pop up right to that, 187, 180 level, or 178, 180 level, right? Find rejection in this 50 period that could drive us back down into that weekly fair value gap that's down below. Again, drawing more liquidity. So we'll have to see as we start to approach that like 175 to 185 level, again, where that fair value gap is, right? And if we look at the consequent encroachment, the 50% of that fair value gap, it's right around where our 50 period on the 4-hour chart is. So if we do find rejection, we're likely to find it right around at 178 to 180 level. Now I'm going to take these off the chart for now, but I know that they're there. We'll go ahead and drop into the 1-hour chart. And the 1-hour chart saw that nice rocket ride right out of the gate today. We had some longer term calls that we were closing out in the Discord, trimmed the position by 50%. And that was a nice trade that we caught out of the gate. We basically timed it perfectly to close. And then I did say if we came back down to like 20% in profit-ish, that I would consider closing. But what I saw is I saw price come down to this 1-hour bullish fair value gap, right? We teased the consequent encroachment of that fair value gap, and we found support. Now, what you want to note on here is that on the 1-hour chart, we are looking bullish. We have price above the 50, price above the 20. We have the 20 pointed up, the 50 is leveling out, and we might see that 20 period give us momentum to drive us back up to that 175, right, which is that fair value gap open, and then potentially even higher, right? We will take out the liquidity from today at 175.43 or 41, and then we'll see where we push from there. We have that fair value gap close all the way at 182. We got an order block up here at 184 all the way up to 185.42. So that could be a likely target if we start moving up, right? Again, we saw that fair value gap inversion on the 4-hour chart, which is a good sign of a reversal. When we get a fair value gap that then inverts with a balanced price range, that's a pretty good sign that things are going to go well, right? That we've reversed for that time period, and that's 4 hours. So that's, it's pretty strong because it's a high time frame, much stronger than like a 1 minute inverted fair value gap. So also above the new week opening gap, right? This candle from open rallied up above some buy side liquidity. Didn't quite take the new high before it dropped down, but definitely looking strong on the 1-hour chart. Last thing we'll look at here is the 15-minute chart today. 15-minute chart also shows a fair value gap, a bullish fair value gap. Again, similarly, we pulled down right around consequent encroachment, 50% of that fair value gap, kind of teased it a little bit, found support, right? Also on the 15-minute chart, above the 20, above the 50, right? Both of them are moving up, even though the 20 is flattening out a little bit, but we're above both, and we saw a nice kind of end of day after hour candle here, that was what time? 7 p.m. Yeah, so that would have been after hours. Just popped this back up, and ended up closing around 172.75, which pretty nice close, right? So we could see us at minimum move back up to that 174.65 all the way up to 176, which there is a order block. No surprise that that's where we rejected today when we punched up, hit that order block, came back down, recycled, found support again, looking for us to drive up through that order block and again take us into that higher time frame daily chart bearish fair value gap that's going to be up here around 176 to 182. So be looking for, you know, Tesla to get moving. Definitely things look good on the 15-minute, the 1 hour, and the daily chart. So the news is going to be the driver. We got PPI, CPI news coming out Tuesday and Wednesday pre-market. Pretty heavy news driver days on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. So you know, be looking for market to make major moves. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with all your friends. I appreciate all the support, you guys. Good luck trading. And again, don't forget to take advantage of the 30 days of free premium by checking out the links in the description below. We'll see you guys in the trading rooms tomorrow.